Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, as we've mentioned a couple of times, including Craig Button, standing by, brought to you by Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Book your island getaway today at BaysideOceanfrontResort.com or call 250-248-8333. NHL season, the North American portion of it, begins tonight with a couple of games here to talk about that and much more hockey-wise. TSN Scouting Director Craig Button. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I love that introduction. The North American edition of the NHL season begins.
Well, do you see the value of the global series in those two games in the Czech Republic over the weekend, or in Czechia over the weekend, Craig?
I do. I mean, our game is a game with lots of wonderful and star international players, and I know there's lots of talk about over the years about having a team in Europe. I don't think it's ever going to happen in my lifetime. I don't think that the geography works. And, but being able to have some games over there to allow players to go back and playing in their home countries in front of their family and their friends, I think is wonderful. I think it celebrates the international aspect of hockey. And we just watched the Summit Series that celebrated the 1972 series. And Bob Clark said we learned a number of things. We learned that the European players were really good and that they could play in our league. And by learning that, they came to our league and made our league better and made everybody better. So I see this. It would be nice if it would have dovetailed nicely with the beginning of the NHL season. But when I look at it in this regard, San Jose and Nashville go over there. They get acclimated. They get time off coming back, and so there's not this kind of jamming it in the middle season. We're going to have another series over there in November, and that becomes a little bit harder, I think, for teams that are traveling and trying to come back to a different time zone. But I think that it worked, and it is odd that we still have preseason games while the regular season has begun over in Europe. But I see it as a real positive.
Craig, Hockey Canada today, the board of directors has stepped down. What do you think's in the future for that organization?
Well, the first step was what happened today. I mean, Andrea Skinner resigned on Saturday, and then the rest of the board stepped down, and now, Chief Executive Officer Scott Smith has left the organization. So, and until you remove the leadership, you cannot have new voices and new leadership come in to affect positive change and to really get to the understanding of what needs to happen. Listen, this didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be the culture isn't going to be changed overnight. But right now with the announcement today, it's an important step to start building how Hockey Canada can really be an agent for change in all areas. Like we're talking about inclusion, diversity, making sure that it's safe for everybody, making sure that it can be as affordable to the greatest extent for everybody to participate in the sport and everything that goes with it. And so, those steps are important, with the exit of one leadership group. And now we can start to consider, who can make it up. And I also think the review by the former judge is going to be important too, because that's going to serve as something that can be instructive to, some things that, we may be aware of, some things that we may not be aware of, that we don't want to become problematic. So all these things are necessary in my view. We can sit here and say, finally, the bottom line is now you can start to look to what that future is. And I have confidence, and people might say I'm overly optimistic, but I have confidence that this step can now lead to the positive change that is necessary within Hockey Canada.
Craig, 1993, the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. Can you tell us about the 7 Canadian teams right now, where you see them? Is there any chance that streak can be over?
Yeah, I think it can be. I mean, in the past number of years, we've been talking about one team, maybe two teams. I look at three teams that I put right into the serious Stanley Cup contender category, and that would be the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if we look at just the Pacific Division with Edmonton and Calgary, and if it goes the way, top teams advancing, then either Calgary or Edmonton, just like last year, are guaranteed playing in a conference final. So that to me is the first step. But I see three teams that are capable of competing for the Stanley Cup. I don't know if we've been able to say that at this point in time in previous seasons, Rick. But those teams are good. There's no perfect team in the National Hockey League. With it, there's other teams that have become weaker. And I think that also presents different opportunities, for teams that are trying to push their level of success higher and further along the road. But I think those three teams are right there in the serious contender mix.
Okay, so you've seen the Canucks off-season changes. We've gone through the preseason, season opener tomorrow. What can we realistically expect in your eyes, Craig, from the Canucks this season?
Yeah, well, Rick, I've said it consistently, and it's not going to change. I think Bruce Boudreau understands exactly what he has. He's got a number one goaltender. He's got a number one defenseman in Quinn Hughes. He's got some terrific forwards. In the offseason, one of the things the Canucks wanted to do was add some speed up front. They did that with Mikheyev. Hopefully he gets back healthy and can show what he can do on the ice. The signing of Kuzmenko, just gives you more offensive depth, and I think he's shown that he can come in and be a good, solid contributor for this team. And I think the way they played in the 57 games under Bruce is indicative of what their potential is. Do I think the playoffs are automatic for them? No. Do I think they can find their way into the playoffs? Yes, I do. Certain things, they can't afford injuries. Tyler Myers is out for 2 to 4 weeks. You can't afford injuries in that area of your team. The blue line is something that is going to have to continue to be looked at and find ways to improve upon. And failing that, this team will be on the edges of making it. Their forwards are good enough. Their goaltender is good enough. But that group of defense after Quinn Hughes isn't good enough to guarantee you a playoff spot. So there's got to be some things that go right. But I think that Bruce understands this is the way we got to play. And I think the other benefit, Donnie and Rick, is that, Thatcher Demko has a long-term contract. Yeah. You might just have to say, you know what, your save percentage is going to be, don't worry about your save percentage. We might have to win games 7-5. Just make sure that we end up on the right side of it. Don't give up the 6th goal. Don't take us out of games, right? Make the saves when we can. We're not going to evaluate you on your save percentage per se, because I think the way they have to play is kind of run and gun. Because I think that's what the makeup of their team dictates they have to be, and I think Bruce showed that in the 57 games.
And quickly, Craig, what can you tell us about new Canuck defenseman Riley Stillman?
Well, I think Riley's a really good, smart player. I think that he upgrades, the top 6. I mean, what I would call him is, can he play in the number 4 hole? I think he could. But certainly a good number 5, and that's your third pair defense. He's competitive. He makes good plays with the puck. He's not flashy, but I think that, sometimes, and I learned this from Daryl Sutter, we all have an ideal of what it'll look like with this player in this spot or in this box on your team. But anytime you get an opportunity to improve, sometimes those improvements are a little bit smaller. Sometimes they're a little bit larger. Riley Stillman is an improvement on the blue line. And I think that's important for the Vancouver Canucks, given where they're at with their salary cap, given where they're at with some of their younger players and not trying to force them into a situation before they're ready. And I think that, when you look at what the Canucks did, adding the speed up front, as I mentioned, I think that they're done a good job in getting their salary cap, under a greater control. So I think that these are real positives for the Vancouver Canucks.
Craig, happy Thanksgiving and happy hockey.
Hey, what did I tell you, too, about the Mariners? I said they're a good team and they could beat the Blue Jays.
Yes, you did.
Did I not say that last week?
Yeah, we're okay with that.
99% of the time you are correct in all sports.
And 99% of the time a team with an 8-1 lead wins.
Yes. I think
Thank you.
99.9 actually, Craig. Thanks for this,
Is that
Craig.
what it was?
I don't know what.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much.